One of my viewers asked me to make a video talking about dating for autistic people. So, for one, autistic women, just be more accepting of dates. Just accept more dates and allow them to run a little bit longer than you normally would. Just do that and you'll see a lot of success, because a lot of dates get really good the later they go. As the attraction builds, you get to know each other more and more, and the attraction just builds and builds, and there's an escalation. Now sometimes that escalation can lead to sex, but it doesn't have to. Some of the best dates I've gone on just lead to us talking to 2 a.m. and so many women cite really loving those late night conversations as being like super important to them, because they usually are, because you both let your guard down. So I'd say autistic women, be open to a date running to midnight. And then men, be open to a date running to like 2, 3, 4 a.m. Now I know that's really hard, because autistic people, you like your routines, and all of this is very difficult for you. Dates can be very adventurous, very full of curveballs and unknowns, and that sucks, right? Look at these people on the right. Let's say if they're autistic, they're probably worrying about the wine. They're probably worrying about how the food's going to taste. They're worrying about, how they're going to make their way home. They got stuff they're worrying about for tomorrow, before they even can focus on the date, right? Getting to know the other person, charming the other person, making themselves attractive to the other person, and finding what that person is really all about, right? So dating for autistic people is very difficult, because their focus isn't on the right things. Now, it's not their fault. It's outside of their control. But so the only thing you can do is make yourself a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more outgoing. And I think you can also make yourself more confident. We're going to focus specifically on men here, because I'm a man, and I feel like autistic men are in a way worse position when it comes to dating than women. Because even though, for women, they should be doing most of the talking on a date, and that would probably put a ton of pressure on autistic women, more so than non-autistic women. But I can't really help you with that, right? Like, I'm not qualified. I'm not a doctor. I'm no expert in autism. I'm just giving advice on how people might be able to make things a little bit better for themselves, and some sort of overall rules that pretty much apply to everybody. So there's certain ways you can do this. I would say on a date, especially a first or second date, you need to be open to it going 1 a.m. as far as 4 a.m. before you call it. And maybe that requires you like sleeping over at her place, or her sleeping at your place. Hey, we're all grown-ups here. That's something that, even though it might make you uncomfortable, you got to think of it as it's the best possible outcome, right? Now, there's certain implications. The woman you're on a date with, if she's coming over to your place and is there till 4 a.m., she probably wants to spend the night. She probably wants to sleep with you, right? But ultimately what she wants more than anything is those late night conversations where everyone's guards down. You can really get to know each other. There's a certain like raw conversation that happens when your guard's down and like it's dark. It's very and kind of you're sleepy. I feel like you get in this like sleepy state of mind, this like flow state of the conversation that just lends itself to having these really great, meaningful conversations that you kind of can't have otherwise. But before we get to that part in the date, you got to really be open to I would say requesting things of a restaurant, maybe even avoid going to a restaurant. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but, well, first of all, if you're on a date, if you're not going to a restaurant, probably go somewhere where there's at least some kind of food or drink that's like a possibility to get. Because the woman you're on a date with, she's going to probably get hungry and or thirsty at some point. So you need to also like factor that in as well. And that could literally be like a vending machine, a convenience store. Obviously, that's not like ideal. You should probably plan a little bit better. But yeah, these are things to consider. And certain things you could do to decrease the pressure on yourself. Maybe go to a restaurant that you've been to before. That would be a huge help. Think about what foods you like. Think about how you like that food prepared. Or even ask a restaurant for something that maybe isn't even necessarily on the menu, but something that they could make, right? If they have like several different entrees that have the ingredients that would allow them to create something that's like something else, hey, maybe they'll do it for you. Yeah. So another thing you can do is, well, another thing you should be doing before going on the date that could also take a lot of pressure off yourself is you got to understand that a lot of attraction is built before going on a date. And look at Jim Halpert here. In this scene in The Office, he is at this like work party that his boss is throwing on. It's a pool party, and he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be at home with his wife and kids. So he sticks around for a little bit because he feels social pressure to be there. But he doesn't want to be there at all. So he sticks around for a little bit, gets in a group photo, waits for something memorable to happen, and then he dips. And in the scene, he brags to the camera about going to a New Year's Eve party and being home by 9. Now, he's doing this because of a social obligation to go to parties, not because he's trying to elevate his status in, like, say, the dating market. But you could do some stuff like this, and it would elevate your status in the dating market, which you don't necessarily need to do, but you kind of do need to do, right? Especially if you're somebody who doesn't really like to socialize and go out very much. It will only help you if you can give the perception that you are somebody who likes to go out sometimes and is a little bit adventurous and fun. So you can literally utilize this Jim Halpert strategy of going out but leaving way early. Now, you don't want to come across as you're too cool for school and you're just waiting to leave. You actually need to be able to have a good time to some extent. So find a way where you can have a good time at parties, at work outings, at all kinds of things. Because guess what? A woman's going to be gauging you even before you ask her out, but certainly on a first date. She's going to want somebody who's adventurous, who's fun, who she can go out to dinner. Somebody who can go to dinner with her and her parents, her and her siblings, her and her friends, maybe even her and her coworkers, right? She wants you to be somebody who she can like show off in some kind of way, and somebody who can come across as being just a chill, normal dude, right? Which involves making small talk and socializing with people even when you don't want to, right? Everyone socializes all the time with people that they don't want to. And It's just a part of life. And the more fun and adventurous you can seem, the better off you'll be, which involves socializing. Right? It's hard. I get that it's hard for you, but you can do it. You can go to a work event for an hour. You can go to a party for an hour, right? I know. Even don't feel like you're certainly going to have a bad time, even if you're almost certainly going to have a bad time. Even if it feels completely pointless, there's actually a really good point to it. Say that Jim Halpert was a single guy in this scene, staying around. Now, he's a little standoffish at this party. He's not like trying to have all that much fun, but if he was there and he was trying to have fun, say several, probably like Kelly Kapoor and Aaron would, their attraction to him would go up. His, dating market value or whatever would go up. And even if he doesn't ever want to date those two specifically, they probably got some cute friends, right? And so that social capital would immediately transfer over, because maybe the next work outing, they bring one of their cute friends. And all of a sudden, he's given one of their friends a big serving of big tuna. That was such a lame joke. But seriously, you can make yourself, you want to be fun and adventurous. Even if you're not all that fun and adventurous, you need to be perceived as that. And putting yourself out there in that way will increase your confidence. And I feel like a lot of autistic people, just having a little bit of confidence would go miles, because it goes miles for everybody. It goes miles for non-autistic people. It does wonders. Women pick up on that stuff instantly. And you can make yourself way more confident by just having the correct attitude. I'll tell a quick story. I dated a woman. She has her own apartment. She didn't have a wrench, a plunger, or a screwdriver. And one day she wanted help assembling this thing, and this piece of furniture or whatever that she got off Amazon or whatever it was. So I get the thing all out of its little bags and ready to assemble, and I'm like, all right, where's your screwdriver? I'm like, where's your screwdrivers? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, all right, where are your tools? She says, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Like your tools, like your screwdrivers, like I need a Phillips head and maybe even a wrench. She's like, I don't think I own any tools. I'm like, you don't own any tools? What? And I had noticed that she didn't have a plunger in her bathroom. And I'm like, do you not own a plunger? She's like, no. I'm like, well, you should own these things, because what if something goes wrong? So I'm like, I'm going to the dollar store. There was one that was a 2-minute walk from her place. So I'm walking to the dollar store. You can come with me if you want, but I'm buying you screwdrivers and a wrench and a plunger. She's like, no, you don't have to. I'm like, it's from the dollar store. It's low quality stuff. It'll probably be less than $10 altogether. I mean, I think it was $11 in total. She's like, oh, you don't have to. I'm like, no, I'm doing it. I'm doing it right now. You have to have this stuff. And a couple months later, she's like, thanks for buying me that stuff. I ended up using the screwdriver. I'm like, yeah, this is important for adults to have. And I tell this story because so many times, especially in modern society, women are completely incapable of being normal functioning adults. They can't change a tire. They can't check their fluids in their vehicle. They can't. They don't understand the importance of using tools. They can't use a tool. They can't spin a screwdriver. They can't figure out buttons on things. there's a lot of disastrous women out there. Can't cook, can't clean, can't do anything around the house. So as women's dating market value has just plummeted beyond belief, men's value has gone up. So men out there, you should have more confidence than ever. You should realize that you bring way more to the table than women do. Enormously. Like the value that brings, oh my God. Oh my goodness, right? Like, could you imagine if you dated a woman and she could like assemble basic furniture? She could use a screwdriver. That alone would put her in like the top 20% of women as far as like actually being a useful partner, bringing anything to the table, bringing anything to a partnership, to like, you know, being a couple who live together. So you got to really think about what you bring to the table. Dude, the same woman didn't own a vacuum cleaner and her floors were all gross. You know, I bought her a vacuum cleaner as well because I'm like, what is this? Like, are you kidding me? So you'd be shocked if you really like men. You should have the attitude that I have, which is a very realistic attitude. That when I ask a woman out, if she goes on a date with me, because I'm fun and charming and genuinely adventurous and smart and great to talk to, it's going to be one of the best dates of her life. Guaranteed. If we hook up, it's going to be one of the best she ever had. If we start a relationship, it's going to be one of the best she ever had, because holy crap, do I ever bring a lot to the table, right? And that confidence, women pick up on that big time. And you can have that confidence. You really can. I'm somebody who has anxiety issues. And sometimes, like, I don't feel social anxiety. If I ask a pretty woman out, I feel like, you know, 0.001% anxiety. But there are times where I ask a pretty woman out and I feel that 0.001% anxiety. But say I'm feeling like 75% anxiety from other stuff in life, which is when I feel anxiety, right? I've had that. And so when I ask a woman out, I'm visually anxious. I'm nervous. And I've done it where I stumble on my words, where that nervousness results in me asking her out and it being more awkward than I anticipated it to be. And I remember one time I literally said, "Oh, I'm just nervous because you're so pretty." I said something like that. She got a big smile on her face, and guess what? We went on a date and ended up dating each other for a good little bit, a couple months. Now, so even if you present a tiny bit of nervousness, that's fine. That shows a woman that it kind of matters to you, or at least you kind of are stumbling because she's so pretty. That's what you want her to think. You don't want her to think this means the world to you. This is a huge deal, because that's going to be a giant turnoff. That's not going to lead to a date. And it shouldn't mean very much to you, because, hey, guess what? You're going to see another pretty woman before the day's end, most likely. So you need to have confidence in yourself that will translate directly in your dating pursuits, and it'll help out. That tiny bit will help out more than you imagine that it would, right? Because you need to come across, like I'm saying, you need to come across as somebody who she can bring around her family and her friends, and they're going to be like at least accepting. They're not going to be like, all right, this guy's like this creepo who won't even talk to any of us. You know, it's a lot easier than I feel like people want to make it out to be. But obviously it's going to be incredibly hard for people with autism. It's like by definition going to be incredibly hard because there's so many variables. You go on a date, there's so many variables. The fact that location can change and it can just run whatever amount of time is pretty hard. I imagine it's incredibly hard. I remember I went on a date with a woman and it went really well. We went out to dinner and she clearly kind of wanted to keep having drinks there, but it was like on a patio somewhere, and she was great and we were having a good time, and I'm like, well, let's buy some drinks at the liquor store and then go for a walk or go to your place, because she lives a few towns over. So we buy some booze, we go for a walk in the park, and then we go to her place and we keep on drinking. And it was kind of like, it didn't go super well to where, like, the date could have ended at any point in this whole process. It wasn't a phenomenal date, but it was okay, right? Like, it was pretty good. I still keep in touch with this woman, even though we haven't, like, gone out again. But, hey, that was that was actually, despite it going good, I would say it was one of the worst dates I've ever been on, because it was just kind of all over the place, right? Like, imagine you're meeting somebody for the first time. You get dinner with them. You're having a drink at a restaurant. Then you go to a liquor store. Then you go to a park. Then you go to their apartment. Like, that's a lot of changes of location. And, like, the vibe felt different at every point in the process. It never exactly quite felt right. But there was also, like, attraction on both sides. Like, it was one of the hardest to gauge dates I had ever gone on. Now, overall, it went well, but it was, there were so many variables, and this woman, she's from, I forget if she said that she lived there. I think maybe her parents were from somewhere in Asia, somewhere in Eastern Asia, but she gave me this soup. She had made this soup. She didn't make it for me, but she had made this soup earlier that day for, like, her and her roommate, who was from the same area roughly in Asia. And she's like, you should try this soup. So she gives me a bowl of this soup, and it's got an entire fish's head in the soup. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't like seafood at all. No, it was salmon. I'm pretty sure, because there was, like, chunks of salmon, and I liked the salmon. Like, me having never liked seafood ever in my life, even a tiny bit in any way, I'm like, oh God, as she's literally watching me eat this soup, and there's, like, this chunk of salmon meat, and I've never had salmon. I assume that, like every other seafood I've ever tasted in my life, this is going to be terrible. I'll put that stuff in my mouth. Because, I mean, I look at the soup and I see this fish eye looking at me from this fish head, and I'm like, this is, like, not something I want to eat. I don't want to eat this. But this very sexy woman made it. She didn't make it for me, but she, like, served me a bowl. And, I look at the food the last thing I want to do is put this in my mouth. Like, there's few things that I want to do less than doing this. But, I look at the food. I look at this great rack. I look at my food, and I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm eating it. You know what I mean? It's just, sacrifices kind of have to be made. You kind of have to put yourself out there and put yourself in crappy positions, in uncomfortable positions, right? Because I literally thought, this looks so gross. I might have to vomit immediately. I might have to run to the bathroom and vomit this out. or I might just spit it out instantly. This doesn't look like could you imagine that? Imagine that say there's a type of food where it comes in all sorts of varieties, and you've tried like 20 different varieties that you hated, and some beautiful woman is serving you this, and you have to take a bite. Think about the pressure on you in that scenario. Now that's a little abnormal. That's like probably one of the worst. Because of that, it's one of the worst dates I ever went on, because there were so many variables. So much like it just the date changed form so many times. But I rolled with the punches and I got through it, and it was worth it. So, like I'm saying with Jim Halpert, you can make yourself more adventurous and fun than you kind of really are. Jim doesn't really do it in the scene, but if he had gone there and kind of put his best foot forward and tried to have a good time, oh my God, would that ever endear him more to these people? Not that he needs to or like wants to, but like if anything in this scene, he wants to endear himself to that group of people less because he's only there due to social obligation. Like he hates that he's even invited to these things. So it's you kind of need to be Jim, but like also Jim with a good attitude who's trying to increase his social capital. And you need to pursue women and have confidence. Have confidence in yourself and be okay with having confidence in yourself. Involves being okay with stumbling over your words a little bit, being a little awkward, dropping the ball. Maybe you ask a woman out and your voice cracks. Make a joke. Say, I don't know what the hell that was. Say, sorry, I'm just nervous. You're so gorgeous. I've said stuff like that. Like I've literally described on this channel how I wasn't great at asking women out. I was good, but I'd barely done it. And this was like in my early 20s. I challenged myself. Me and my cousin, we challenged ourselves to ask out 300 women in one summer. And we got that stuff done in like 3 weeks. Like, that's like no joke. And that was some of the times. That was some of the times where I asked the woman out. And some of those times it was a little awkward because I'm also somebody where sometimes I'm thinking a word in my mind, but my mouth says a different word. Weirdly, I'm that way with the number 7 and the number 4. I'll think 7, I'll say 4, or I'll think 4 and I'll say 7. Happens to me all the time. I don't know why. But that's also just other words. And sometimes, you know, you get a lump in your throat, or you have to cough mid-sentence, and it throws you off. That doesn't mean you stop and you think about that at all. At the time, no. You don't got time to think about anything, to worry about anything. You're just communicating. And another way a guy can kind of remove the pressure from himself when asking a woman out is doing it in this type of way. So say you work, say these people are coworkers on the right. Now I don't know why the next table over has Vladimir Putin. I don't know why. But let's say these two people, they work together and he asked her out when they worked together. Now, do you think that he asked her out by thinking about exactly what he wanted to do? Exactly. Do you think he built it up for months and then walked his way up to her, walked halfway down the grocery aisle to where she's stocking shelves and said, You know what, Susie? Let's go out on Friday night. Oh, maybe we can go to a movie, or we can go to dinner, or we can go bowling. Or do you think what happened was they were shooting the shit at work, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, want to get dinner Saturday night? Want to go out to dinner Saturday night?" Probably the second option. And you can do stuff like this too. So instead of like building up to asking somebody out, have certain things that are always going to be open. The movie theater, a restaurant, bowling, axe throwing. So there's going to be some, it depends on where you live, but there's going to be certain things that are open every night of the week. Or, you know, you could even disqualify Sunday if you wanted, or whatever the hell. But, and you could even say on a date that say it's a holiday and the place is closed, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're asking out a place and a time. Now that time could literally be like something as vague as like Friday night. But you should have some idea in your mind. And you literally have those, right? So say I'm asking somebody out. Sorry, one sec. Say I am going to ask out a random woman that I see, or that I know, that I work with, whatever. If I ask her out for dinner on Friday, guess what? There's going to be a bunch of restaurants that are going to be open that we can go get dinner at on Friday. And I can figure it out later. She can be like, "Oh, where at?" You know, it buys you time to say, "Hey, like let's go to Jimmy's on Jimmy's at 7. Or, you know, Olive Garden at 8. Whatever it may be, it doesn't really matter, because say she's not available that night. She'll probably be like, "Oh, well, I'm busy Friday night. Let's go Saturday night. How about we get Chinese?" Does it matter to you? It kind of shouldn't. It should mean nothing to you. So have a specific activity and rough time period in mind, but don't have it like prepared, if that makes sense. Like, understand that any night of the week you can go out and you can do something, and there's certain things that are going to be open any night of the week. If you hate bowling, take that off the options that you have, but you should have these things like going to dinner, going to a movie, sort of in the back of your mind, to where you could ask out any woman at any time with those things. Even, and make it spontaneous for yourself. Making it spontaneous for yourself will not only reduce pressure, as you're not building it up in your mind. Even if you're certain that you're going to ask a woman out, say it's your coworker Susie, and you know you're going to ask her out, don't have a specific date in mind until the very moment you ask her out. Sound certain, sound like, you know, dinner Friday night. But you don't have to be 100% certain, really. Like, you can be vague in your mind, and then, you know, talk about the details when she says yes. So you're going to go in with the right attitude, that you bring a ton to the table, that if she goes out with you, she's going to have the best time ever, because she's going to, because you bring a lot more to the table than you realize you do. You're a functioning adult. You're awesome. You're cool. You're funny. You're charming. You're adventurous. You're great to talk to. And you're going to have an activity in mind and a time in mind. And even if that doesn't actually work out, it should work out for your schedule. You should be able to, within your own mind, know if you're busy that night, right? But yeah, there has to be a flexibility that maybe instead of that night, it be the other night. But have a specific night in mind and be specific about it. because that just shows like confidence. And be confident that even if you stumble in asking out, that it's still going to be just fine, that she's going to find it a little charming, that maybe her beauty kind of stunned you a little bit. Maybe she's a little stunning, you know? That's where that term comes from. And be adventurous and have that adventurous, fun part of you be noticeable even before you ask them out. Right? That's the beauty of like going to school with somebody or being a coworker, is you can do this like long form riz. You can build your sort of this person's perception of you over time. And you don't want to be like Jim Halpert, where he seems a little too cool for school, where it seems like he just doesn't want to be at this party because he's kind of an asshole. Right? Like, I mean, he wants to spend time with his wife and kids, but if he didn't have a wife and kids, he would seem like the biggest asshole. You don't want to come across as that. You want to come across as though you have something else to do and maybe you reluctantly have to leave. You don't want to come across as though I'm just going to go party with my friends because they're way cooler than you guys. You don't want to be like douchey, assholey vibes. You want to be like, you know, sorry guys, I gotta go. And just don't even tell people what you have to do. Just be super vague. And if they dig in, because sometimes they will, especially if they're drinking, right? They'd be like, oh my God, don't leave. What do you got to do? Where do you have to go? To say, you know, say you're meeting up with your family, meeting up with your friends. Say you got a thing. You're like, I got a thing with, you know, my buddy's coming from out of town. Make it sound like you're reluctant to leave. And because then instantly the people around you, like I said, they kind of build your social dating market value, which is a thing that it's not worth obsessing over, but it does exist, right? Like that's your status and your socializing does kind of exist. It's not as significant as people make it out to be, but it is a factor. And it probably doesn't mean anything most of the time, but sometimes it does. Because like I said, maybe Kelly Kapoor the next time brings her hot friend. Maybe Erin Hanlon next time brings her hot friend. And all of a sudden you got a girl that you can start talking to. And I think that kind of also has to do with a lot of this, is a lot of the time, hey, there's plenty of fish in the sea. You'll probably see another beautiful day before the day is over. Another beautiful woman, I mean, right? So you also have to have that attitude. Like, hey, if I ask out this woman and she doesn't go out with me, fine. There's more out there. I'm not going to be hung up about it. Why would you? It's all about just being a confident, awesome dude. And I feel like so many guys out there that I know are so cool and so bring so much to the table. They're so fun to talk to, and they have this high amount of value that they just completely don't see. They just see themselves as like the bottom of the barrel, just because they can be a little awkward. I don't get it. I don't get, like, that's not reality. And it's only a reality if you buy into it, and buying into it lowers your confidence and lowers it. Like, let's say you're actually here. If you allow yourself to buy into that you're here, it actually drags you down to like here. When if you did the opposite, it actually elevates you to here instead of dragging you down to here. So it's not easy to do, right? Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm no expert on autism. I'm not qualified to talk about this. But I think there's certainly things you can do to build your confidence, to build the perception people have of you of how confident you are and how fun and adventurous you are. And that will yield great results. And I think you can really take the pressure off yourself, because women so often dictate how dates go. Women, by definition, are supposed to be talking 60% to 80% of the time on a date. Flat out, that's how most dates I've ever gone on work. And by most, I mean like at least 95% of them. So the pressure's not really on you. You just need to be able to engage with what the woman's saying, what the woman's into. Don't be a jerk about anything she's into. Don't say you hate anything that she's into. If you don't like something that she's into, just say, "Oh, that's decent," right? Like just the other day, my coworker, he said that he just saw Beetlejuice 2 and it was a pretty good film. And I'm like, "Yeah, it was decent." Even though I don't like the film at all. I think it's terrible. But why should I shit on him? You know, like, it doesn't matter to this guy. This guy, like, who cares if he liked it? It doesn't, like, and especially if I'm on a date with a woman, who cares if she likes something that I don't like? You know, even if a woman's really overly into something that's like insanely long, somehow, I don't know how this has happened, but I have yet to date a woman who likes the show Supernatural. I've never watched Supernatural. But there's some women out there who are terribly into the show Supernatural, which I think has like over 10 seasons. I'm sure that at some point in my life, I'm going to have to watch that show, because some woman I'm going to date is going to be into that show and going to want to watch it with me. Now, I might not like the show. I don't know if I will. Maybe I won't. But that's fine. I'll just watch it with her. I'll find something in it to like. So, and that's what Jim Halpert is great at. Finding something, making fun of inside of unfun scenarios. He does it by pranking Dwight and just chilling and talking with his coworkers. That's what everyone should be like to some extent. Not like, you know, be able to have fun when things aren't fun. And it's weird because I know people with autism who do exactly that, who can make a completely unfun, dull scenario into a fun one. And that's hugely valuable, especially in dating, right? Because so much of dating is unfun. There's nothing inherently fun about sitting to dinner, right? Now, not every time are you going to be like these people where the next table over has Vladimir Putin doing whatever he's doing. But most of the time, you're going to be in very dull scenarios. But because you're going to be there with somebody who you really like and are really interested in, it's going to make it very fun. And this is something that women super value. They love a fun, funny guy more than anything, right? And you make yourself mysterious. Feel free to make yourself mysterious as well. That will help you a lot. But it's like, I would say number 1 is funny. Number 2, well, actually more than funny, is fun. Make yourself fun. You gotta at least have her perceive that you're somebody who she can take out, that she can do fun things with. Number 2 is being funny, which is just making jokes. Could be doing pranks. He probably most often won't be, but just being chill, fun vibes. Allow the woman's funniness to come out. The woman's going to be talking more on the date than you are. She's probably going to say some funny stuff. So set her up, tee her up for jokes. You know what I mean? You can do that just by showing interest in her story. I think that's probably where a lot of autistic people likely struggle, is they're just not showing the appropriate interest in what the other person's talking about. Because if you go on a date with a woman, she's going to be talking most of the time, and she's mostly going to be talking about herself. And a lot of time that ain't going to be all that interesting, right? But you need to show interest. You need to get excited about the story she's telling, even if it's not exciting. To some extent, you need to be engaged. And just have that in your mind. Say, hey, I am going to get excited about one of these stories she tells. I'm going to... And there's so many times people tell a story, and you tell they're like exaggerating certain parts of it to make it a more interesting story. That's fine. Buy into it. Get excited. Allow yourself to be fun and laid back. Drop your barriers. You know, it's allow her to talk about herself and allow her to be funny. Literally some of the funniest times I've ever had on dates were like, you know, usually it's me being funny, but oftentimes it's the woman being funny, or me and the woman being funny, and we're bouncing off each other's funniness. It's just awesome. So I think it really comes down to just taking pressure off yourself. And there's sort of little ways you can do that, and find ways. Like, don't just rely on somebody's advice, on my advice. Also search for things yourself as to how you can take the pressure off yourself and how you can build your confidence more. Right? It's there's probably more to you than you give yourself credit for. And you got to put yourself out there, like I was talking about, spontaneously asking a woman out. Guess what? She's gonna pick up on that spontaneity, and she's gonna think, wow, this guy, maybe I'm looking hot today. I caught this guy's eye. He realized he wants to ask me out, and he did not hesitate at all. He asked me right out, right then and there. He's spontaneous, he's adventurous, he's fun. Maybe I'll go on a date with this guy, right? That's what she's going to be thinking. Even if you do that and you stumble, even if you do that and you seem a little nervous, she's going to think all those things, and she's going to think, oh, he was a little nervous. Maybe I'm a little stunning. Maybe this guy's got a crush on me, so it means a little something to him, right? She doesn't want you to think that it means everything to you, that it's a big deal to you. No, that's going to be a giant turnoff, and she's not going to go out with you. But you can be a little nervous. It's not the end of the world. So just search for ways to make yourself more comfortable, make yourself more confident, and be spontaneous. Ask women out. And be down to stay up late with her. Have a late night chat with her. Maybe even go to her apartment. Maybe even sleep on her couch. You know, I probably wouldn't. You maybe walk home from her place late in the night. Maybe do things that make you a little bit uncomfortable.